Logan looks down at the piece of paper and tells Eileen that he was thinking about creating a merchant group in McLain. Hearing this, Eileen sounds surprised. She is then excited, asking Logan if this is the reason for how busy he's been and if there's anything she can do to help him. Logan, however, says that it's fine as he can leave this to someone else. In a study, it looks like Logan has already brought all the necessary documents to someone. This is Philip, who cannot believe Logan is leaving this to him. Logan says that indeed he is, as he couldn't think of any better person to do it, more so with how he has managed to handle import. Logan really thinks Philip has a knack for selling things, so he wants Philip to be the head of the McLain merchant group. Hearing this, Philip wonders if Logan is serious and how he could blindly trust him like that. Philip then realizes there is still that contract that binds the two of them. Philip's life is in Logan's hands, which should make him easier to trust. Logan also says that he was thinking of selling off the surplus grains first, as that will be worth at least 10 million gold. He then tells him that he has completed the documents Philip will need, so he will give him servants, guards, and workers. Logan then tells Philip that he has around 100 million gold coins in reserves for Philip to use as he sees fit, and Philip can't even comprehend that large sum. He then tells Philip that his commission will be 0.5% of the profit. That makes him stand up. Philip asks Logan what it is that he wants from him, and Logan says that there are only two things he wants. One of them is obviously for the merchandising guild to make a profit. The other is for Philip to create trading routes and connections within the empire. Hearing this, Philip is not sure what to say. Philip thinks that most large merchant groups already trade with the empire, but to say it so explicitly makes Philip wonder. Philip tells Logan that this wouldn't be a normal trading route, and Logan thinks that Philip is sharp. Philip asks Logan how deep he wants this connection to be, and Logan tells him that it needs to be deep enough to trade information or perhaps even absolute unwavering loyalty. Logan says that he would prefer that later on, but he knows it would be really difficult to achieve. The gold bug was one of the top 10 richest men in his past life, but he cannot expect that from Philip yet. He is now with the McLains, so to the empire, he is an outsider. This situation is different from before, where the gold bug renounced his citizenship for the empire. So until the war occurs, Logan would find it beneficial to have some influence on the empire's provinces. Philip then tells Logan that he will need time and people. He says that he needs a large player in the empire that Logan could connect him with, and for at least 5 years. With these conditions, he can try. Hearing this, Logan drops a sweat. He tells Philip that the person he has called over fits that description exactly, and Philip asks if Logan has already called for someone. Logan then tells Philip that this is the large player he talked about earlier. Hearing this, Philip thinks he cannot believe Logan has already done that, as only a few people in the empire can say they have such connections. One of them died in the previous war, and another family ended in ruin, and there would be but one other family. A man can be seen begging Marion to save their family. That is Marion, however, who can only look down with sadness at the man. Later, he tells Logan to ignore these people. She tells him that she has said what she had to as their daughter, and Logan says that they were the ones who abandoned them in the war with Taran. However, Logan tells Marion that he won't ignore them. There is something he will need from them. Someone extends their hand and tells a person to say their greetings. He points towards the leader of the Kairos merchant group that will be assisting Philip, Varan Kairos, who is also the successor of this group. Philip asks if he is Kairos, as in the grain merchant, and Logan asks if this isn't a great connection. Logan prompts his uncle to say hello and introduces Philip Claude as the head of the merchant group, and Varan says that at least Philip has a surname. Varan asks Philip if he is a noble, and Philip tells him that he is only a commoner and that he doesn't know who his ancestors are. Hearing this, Varan asks Logan if he really has to serve a commoner, and Logan asks if he dislikes it. Logan then says that he doesn't think Varan can afford to do that, and he also guesses that if this is the case, Kairos must be doing fine after all. With this, Varan joins hands with Philip, saying that he will do his best to support him, and Philip says that he is looking forward to working with Varan. A few days later, it looks like the McLain banners can be seen high in the sky. Lots of carriages are leaving the estate. The people living in the city are asking what all those carriages are for, and another one replies that they are for some merchant group, and it seems like Philip is the one owning them. Someone then calls for Philip from behind. This is Logan and Dwayne, and Philip tells them that there was no need for them to come. But Logan says that it was he who put him up to this, so he should at least say goodbye to Philip. Logan then says that he also has something to give to Philip, but he doesn't understand what Logan means by that. Logan pulls out a piece of paper and tells Philip that he missed it. Seeing this, it looks like Philip is unsure of what's happening, as this is his contract. As Logan pinches it with both his hands, Philip wonders what the meaning of this is. He then rips the contract in half right in front of Philip. Seeing this, Philip cannot believe it. A magic light appears, and it looks like the contract's power is nullified. Logan says that it's late, but this is Philip's reward, and that he has forgotten how much Philip has done for him all this time. Dwayne smiles. This was clearly unexpected to Philip, and emotions are overflowing him. So are his tears when Logan calls him Philip, head of the McLain merchant group, with a couple of tears falling towards the ground. Philip says that he will definitely do it. He wipes his tears away as he tells Logan that he will do his best. Logan and Dwayne then simply smile at him. With this, the carriages have left the castle. Logan says that now that they are off, he should take a look at his new territories, and Dwayne asks if Logan will be going to Kalia himself. Logan says that he will be going to Taran, which prompts Dwayne to ask Logan why he would want to visit that wasteland. Logan tells Dwayne that, in case he forgot, McLain used to be barren, too, and Dwayne asks Logan if he plans to build a dam there as well. Logan then says that this could be a possibility, but he needs to check something first. Logan is then approached by his brother, and it looks like he has been looking for Logan for quite some time, and Logan asks if he is there to see Philip go. Then Logan notices something. He sees Ranian all dirty and messy and asks him if he is sick. Logan then realizes that this is not the case. In fact, he can see that Ranian has gotten stronger and that he is as powerful as a high-ranking Force user now. He goes to ask Ranian how he has trained, as he doesn't want him to hurt himself. But Ranian tells him that this is not about the training. He tells Logan that he just found the way after changing his mindset. This is why Ranian has concluded. He tells Logan that he wants to go on a warrior's pilgrimage. A warrior's pilgrimage is a wandering journey of trial and experience meant to hone both martial and interpersonal skills. It may sound grand, but many die during the journey, so it's not as popular nowadays. Logan thinks, why would Ronnie volunteer to undergo such hardship? Ranian tells Logan that he has been thinking a lot, and there's nothing for him to do here. Hearing this, Logan asks him what he means by that. Ranian is training the knights and taking care of security, but Ranian says that he only filled in what Logan could have done by himself. He then says that this is really not what he is good at. Logan realizes that this must be the reason he wants to leave, and thinks that he would eventually become an aura user soon, even if he just stayed here. And so Logan asks him who told him about this. He asks Ranian who made him want to go on this pilgrimage. That is when Ranian reveals that it was all thanks to Logan. He asks how that happened, and Ranian says that it's been happening since forever. He tells Logan that he is the pillar of this family now, but he always was his rock. There were indeed some issues between those two events. But even so, Logan was always the first to step up when their family was in trouble. That is why Ranian has always stayed behind, whatever happened, as he was sure Logan would be able to take care of it. He relied on that faith on the battlefield, but now he thinks it's only holding him back. Ranian then tells Logan that he is sure he will be holding him back if this continues. Hearing all of this, Logan does not want to accept it. He tells Ranian that this is not because of him. Instead, it's he who is holding Ranian back. Logan then thinks that Ranian, the youngest aura user, should have been the result of all his hard work to restore his family's glory. Never came to be. Ranian awakened the Force earlier than in his past life, and has been learning the divine sword secrets. So he must have lost his motivation to become stronger. But still, Logan only thought of holding him back as he searched for the answer. Logan then remembers the events of his past life and how Ranian was killed by the Empire. Now he is standing right in front of him, waiting for a blessing. Logan wants to say something. However, he stops and simply smiles at Ranian and realizes that this person standing in front of him is not the Ranian from his past life. The next day at dawn, Logan asks Ranian if this really is all he needs. Ranian tells Logan that it would have been nice to have an official send-off, but Ranian says that he will only be away for a little bit. Hearing this, Marion asks if this is true, as Logan said this could take years. She asks Ranian why he is putting himself through this, which makes him laugh. Marion asks Ranian if he even realizes how much she has cried when he left to battle, and Patrick seems a little jealous as he says she only told him good luck. Ranian then tells his mother that, as he has previously mentioned, this is necessary both for the family and himself. Knowing she won't change Ronian's mind, Marion starts crying. She asks Ranian not to do anything dangerous. He reassures his mother while Logan clearly knows this won't be the case. However, this seems enough for Marion to be able to calm down. With this, she hugs Ranian tight. He leaves smiling, telling his family that he will be off now. Patrick wishes Ranian good luck, and Marion tells him to send letters. As he walks the way away from the estate, Ranian sees someone. A man has been waiting for him, asking how long it takes him to say goodbye. This is Victor, who has prepared a horse for Ranian, saying he thought Ranian might have forgotten it was today. These two stand like brothers, face to face. Victor tells Ranian not to get lazy with the training, and Ranian says that he will take him on with one hand when he returns. Mocking him, Victor asks if he is even going to survive and if he even knows how dangerous this world can be, calling him a spoiled little brat. Hearing this, Ranian laughs, saying that everyone is underestimating him. Victor smiles and looks at Ranian. They bump fists, and Victor wishes him good luck. In a workshop in the woods, a banging sound can be heard, a hammer hitting rock. This is Hammer making a sculpture, saying that he can finally see the end of his 142nd noir. Logan comes in and asks Hammer who that is. And he tells Logan that it's his love from 200 years ago, a beauty that not even his skill can replicate. Logan asks if she was truly that pretty. And Hammer says yes and tells Logan to stop bothering him, as the eyes are the most important part of the statue. Then Logan comes even closer, which seems to annoy Hammer. It seems that this causes Hammer to strike the wrong pressure point. With this, his whole statue is ruined. Logan says that he didn't do anything, and Hammer asks him why he is even there. Logan places his hand on Hammer's shoulder and says that it looks like he has plenty of time on his hands. He then tells Hammer that they need to go on a trip. With tears in his eyes, Hammer remains silent. Later, it looks like they have been traveling through some kind of desert and towards a closed mine. Seeing this, Hammer is really annoyed with Logan. He asks him if he calls this a trip, as there's nothing around to see. Hammer then asks Clayton how he ended up here as well, and Clayton tells him that he used all the money for the magic tower, and Hammer asks how that is even possible. Clayton said that he didn't want to, but experimental materials alone take millions, and the success rates are so low. Clayton then starts crying, and Hammer tries comforting him. Logan asks him why he is doing that, as he already said he would help him out. Besides, if they succeed in developing these Taran lands, millions will soon feel like pocket change to them. Logan asked them what was up with their reaction, as Taran is the kingdom's greatest mining city. Hammer said that indeed it was around 200 years ago, but now it's barren, with only abandoned mines. What could they hope to gain from there? Hearing this, Logan starts laughing and asks them what they think they could find. He then answers his own questions, stating that they will be mining mana stones. Hearing this, it looks like Hammer and Clayton's attitude changed. Clayton cannot believe there are mana stones buried here, and Hammer already asks where he must dig. Logan then points his finger at them and says that this is exactly why they are here, to find the mana stones. Realizing that Logan actually has no idea if they can even find it, both Clayton and Hammer get even more annoyed and call Logan a bastard for dragging them out there. Mana stones are the lifeblood of the magical world, essential for producing artifacts, scrolls, and communication orbs. They are the consumable fuel for almost every form of sorcery, and their value is great enough to alter the fortune of an entire nation. It is for this very reason that the discovery of a mana stone deposit is a double-edged sword. It could easily hasten an Imperial invasion. Despite the danger, Logan believes the risk is worth taking. He knows that in the past, the Empire invaded the kingdom specifically because they discovered mana stones in Taran. If Logan can claim them first and complete the research on the Chronet, Taran will transform into the greatest weapons manufacturer on the entire continent. The ambitious project begins in the mines where Clayton commands his earth golems to do the heavy lifting. As the golems clear the way with powerful stone fists, Hammer observes the progress with satisfaction, noting that everything is proceeding smoothly. As the golems open the path, Clayton uses his magic to solidify the earth, reinforcing the tunnels to ensure they are safe for the miners. Logan enters the mine to check on their progress. Bringing food, he prepared himself. He is genuinely impressed by Clayton's efficiency, complimenting him on his ability to solidify the earth while simultaneously controlling 40 golems. With this level of magical prowess, it is only a matter of time before the mine is fully operational. Clayton estimates that at this speed, they will be able to restore 120 shafts in just 4 days. The men take a break to enjoy the sandwiches Logan provided, and the taste leaves them absolutely stunned. Hammer remarks that Logan is surprisingly skilled at cooking for a nobleman, a talent he didn't expect to see. Clayton nods in agreement. Logan nearly lets a secret slip, beginning to explain that he learned to cook back when he was a mercenary, but he catches himself just in time. He quickly pivots, claiming he simply used to know a mercenary who was a good cook. Clayton is left puzzled, wondering about the existence of a mercenary who spends his time in the kitchen. 4 days later, the trio ventures deep into the 82 mineshaft. In their search for the mana stones, Clayton urges them to keep up the pace as they are almost at their goal. Suddenly, he stops and presses his hand against the cave wall. His expression shifted to one of pure shock. Before he can even find the words, Logan asks if he feels something. With wide eyes, Clayton confirms that the energy he feels belongs to a mana stone vein. Overjoyed, he begins to shout about their discovery, prompting Hammer to tell the wizard to keep it down before he brings the entire ceiling crashing down on their heads. Logan, however, shares the exhilaration. They have finally found the source of Taran's future power. Logan immediately reaches out to Dwayne via a communication orb. Dwayne is startled to see Logan looking so disheveled and frantic, but Logan doesn't give him time to ask questions. He commands Dwayne to hire every available worker from Haroon, including the dwarves, and send them to Taran immediately. He stresses that it doesn't matter if they have to overpay. They need the manpower now. Though Dwayne is confused by the sudden urgency, he follows the orders. Soon after, a massive force of 5,000 workers and 152 dwarves arrives at the site. Logan coordinates the logistics, ensuring food and materials are ready for the massive undertaking. He discusses the situation via communication orb with his master, Felix, who is impressed by Logan's dedication to rebuilding Taran. When Felix asks if he found anything of value, Logan decides to keep the mana stones a secret for now, claiming he only found deposits of steel and copper. Logan shifts the conversation to the king's response to his reports. Felix explains that he hasn't been hearing from Logan directly because Logan felt it was more appropriate to report through his master. Felix reassures him that the king is positive about his efforts, though his tone makes Logan curious. Unfortunately, the news isn't all good. Felix reveals that the crown is currently struggling with its finances after the incident involving the wolf's fortune and cannot provide direct financial aid. Logan wonders to himself if the treasury was truly that empty to begin with, but he refrains from complaining to his master. However, Felix delivers a massive win. The king has agreed to exempt Haroon from all taxes for the next 10 years. Logan is so overcome with joy that he nearly crushes his communication orb in his grip. When Felix asks about the breaking sound, Logan dismisses it as nothing and asks to have the tax exemption put in writing. Felix promises to handle it, but insists that Logan visit the capital in a few months for a private discussion that cannot be held over the orb. Logan agrees to the meeting and once the call ends, explodes into a celebration over his tax-free future. Clayton approaches the ecstatic Logan. Sensing an opportunity, he tentatively asks if a portion of the future mana supply could be allocated to the magic tower. To his surprise, Logan agrees instantly. Logan plans to supply the tower and the workshop first before selling the remaining stones through secret channels. He even takes it a step further, suggesting that Clayton move the entire magic tower to Taran to be closer to the source of the stones and to accelerate the research on the Cronet. Clayton is moved by the offer and promises to seriously consider the move. Hammer, however, is far less enthusiastic about sharing his space with a bunch of wizards. Logan quickly moves to win him over by describing a grand vision, a massive unified magic workshop where the tower and the forge work together to mass-produce artifacts. He tells Hammer that he will be the master of this legendary facility. Hammer begins to daydream about a future where dwarves cheer his name, hailing him as the great workshop master Hammer, the legend who turned Taran into the greatest city of craftsmen on the continent. Caught up in the fantasy of Logan calling him cool, Hammer agrees to redo the plans immediately. Logan watches him go, noting with a smirk how easy it is to motivate the dwarf. Hammer explains to Logan that he will begin the report from the second week of construction in Taran. The construction of strategic positions around the fortress is nearly complete, and the houses where the workers will live have also been finalized. Preparations for the development of the mine are almost finished as well. Logan responds by telling him that it is exactly what he expected from Hammer, noting how he truly resolves matters with great efficiency. Logan then pulls Hammer into an embrace and tells him that there is a catch. Hammer, clearly unhappy, asks what could happen next. Logan points out that behind the northern mountain range lies the Taran River, while the Lutter River flows to the south. Hammer demands to know why he is being told this and insists he has no intention of listening. However, with a bright expression, Logan tells him to pay attention, suggesting that if there were a dam connecting those two rivers, Taran would become incredibly prosperous. Hammer is driven to despair, crying out that he does not know and does not want to know. Logan teases him, asking what is wrong with the master of the Magic Tower workshop, reminding him that they are discussing how the place that will become his home will thrive. Hammer can only shout back, calling them the descendants of demons. Logan reflects on the magic stone mine, the exploration of Taran, and the search for the crown. He realizes that once all of this is completed, the development of the territory to face the Empire will be finished. All that remains is to gather information and improve the military power of the kingdom. Years ago, everything had seemed utterly hopeless. While he consoles Hammer, he tells himself that it is precisely in moments like these that he must maintain his calm. He cannot repeat the same mistake Tomoto made. With a malevolent grin on his face, he tells himself to go slowly and stay composed. Seeing this, Hammer begins to tremble with fear, shouting that the master has gone insane. While Logan breaks into a loud, booming laugh, the scene shifts to the new king, who has practically become a drunkard, doing nothing but drinking and resembling Robert Baratheon from Game of Thrones. The king calls for Cleo and remarks that the wine is exquisite, asking what it is called. Cleo responds that it is called Flamma, one of the most famous drinks in the Empire. Surprised, the king repeats the name Flame, and Cleo explains that in the ancient tongue, it indeed means flame as he pours more wine. Following the explanation, the king reflects for a moment, places his wine goblet on the table, and asks Cleo what he thinks of Logan McLain. Cleo is taken aback by the sudden question before answering that Logan is the one primarily responsible for ending the civil war and placing His Majesty on the throne. After hearing these words, the king reasons aloud, agreeing that it is true and that he is undoubtedly grateful, or rather that he must be grateful to him. He decides to take a walk outside in the moonlight, questioning why he feels the way he does, noting that getting some fresh air has improved things slightly. He sighs and thinks to himself that lately he has been reacting too sensitively whenever it comes to Logan McLain. He realizes that even during meetings, he was unable to hide his expression when Logan was mentioned, and it seems even the ministers found it strange. He notes that even the royal advisors seem to notice, admitting to himself that he still has much to learn. While he is deep in thought, assassins emerge from the bushes and surround him and his guards. The king is shocked, and his bodyguard Louis prepares to fight the assassins. The leader of the assassins orders his men to kill them all, and they lunge toward the guards and the king. Louis throws himself at the attackers and orders the guards to protect the king at all costs. Louis observes the enemies, noting to himself that there are 3 high-level and 15 intermediate-level users. He focuses on the intermediates first, eliminating several of them with his mana-coated sword. Once the small fry are dealt with, he charges toward others who are closing in on the king and strikes them down. The leader of the assassins does not falter, coating his own sword in mana and telling his men not to retreat and to kill the king. As the leader approaches the king, Louis intervenes and severs the man's arm with a clean strike before turning his blade against the remaining assassins. The leader, seeing his arm cut off, realizes Louis is far too strong and orders everyone to retreat. The assassins begin to pull back, but Louis refuses to let them go, chasing after them and asking where they think they are going. One of the assassins, seeing Louis in pursuit, turns around and throws a paper at him, telling him to take it. These are magic scrolls that summon a lightning spell. Seeing this, Louis immediately runs back toward the king and protects him, shielding the king's body with his own and taking the lightning strike himself. The king opens his eyes and finds himself unharmed. But the attack has vaporized the bodies of the assassins. Louis is desperate, lamenting the loss of the enemy's bodies before ordering 2 guards to immediately check if any items are left on the foes. However, nothing remains, and one of the guards notes that such an attack happened right in the middle of the palace, and everything is scorched. The other guard adds that if they had such a scroll, he wonders why they didn't use it from the beginning. The king is on his knees as a guard questions where all the garden guards went and how so many people managed to sneak in. Then the king calls for Louis and asks him who he thinks would become king if he were to die in this situation. Louis is shocked by the question, and it appears the king has reached a dark conclusion of his own. The scene shifts back to Logan and Hammer, who are telling the men to be careful during transport. Inside a tent, Logan speaks with his master, who asks what he means by those words, questioning if His Majesty truly suspects him. Felix confirms that he does, explaining that the assassins who attacked the previous night were all intermediate or high-level force users. Furthermore, signs of manipulation were found in the palace guard's rotation schedule, and the only people capable of such a feat are either Logan or Felix himself. Logan asks if His Majesty has officially labeled him as the culprit. Felix responds that he has not said it openly, but he did ask Felix to speak with him. Logan sighs, wondering why he is being targeted, thinking to himself that he was the one who put the king on the throne. Yet now the king believes he would try to take his life. Logan tells his master that he needs to see His Majesty because he needs to know why he is being mistrusted. Felix remains silent for a moment before agreeing to prepare immediately. Surprised, Logan asks what he needs to prepare for. His master explains that His Majesty has stated he will not allow them to meet alone without Felix's presence, as someone capable of containing Logan is necessary in case something happens. Logan reflects privately that the situation is starting to look much more serious than he had originally imagined. The silence within the royal residence is suffocating, heavy with a tension that feels like a physical weight. Logan and his master drop to their knees, their heads bowed low in a display of formal loyalty that masks the storm brewing between them and the throne. Logan is the first to speak, his voice steady as he notes that it has been a long time since they last stood in the king's presence. The king's response is bone-chilling. His tone is like a blade of ice as he acknowledges that it has indeed been quite a while for Duke Logan. As the king's eyes scan the duke's posture, his displeasure is impossible to hide. He watches Logan's every movement, noting to himself with growing irritation that the man doesn't even bother to conceal his obvious discomfort in the royal presence. Logan offers a slight nod, shifting the conversation to the elephant in the room. He claims to be relieved that the king is safe following the unpleasant incident of the assassination attempt. However, the king is far from comforted, convinced that Logan himself is the man who pulled the strings behind the assassins. The king begins to tremble with a mixture of fear and rage. He asks Logan if that is truly his sincere opinion, a question so blunt and accusatory that even Felix is visibly shaken by the king's lack of restraint. The king doesn't stop there. He pushes further, suggesting that Logan might actually be disappointed to see him sitting there alive. The air in the room turns freezing as Logan asks if the king is outright insinuating that he was the mastermind behind the attack. The king counters by bringing up the military reports, pointing out that the McLain family is still aggressively expanding its forces even though the civil war has long reached its conclusion. He demands to know why a man who is already the highest-ranking vassal in the kingdom would need to continue such a massive build-up. Shocked by the directness of the attack, Logan realizes how his actions must look from the outside. In his mind, he admits that when framed that way, his behavior could easily be seen as treasonous. He had assumed the king would offer his full support, so he hadn't given much thought to the political optics. He wonders if everything he has done for the good of the kingdom is about to be used against him. Rising to his feet, he decides that the time for dancing around the truth is over. He tells the king with total sincerity that he believes the empire is planning a full-scale invasion. When the king demands proof for such a bold claim, Logan admits it is currently just a suspicion based on historical patterns. He explains that in over 70% of cases following an imperial succession dispute, the empire has historically invaded its neighbors to solidify its borders. The king is forced to acknowledge the logic, noting that a 70% probability is a terrifyingly high number, one high enough to make any king hesitate to move against a vassal who is preparing for war. Felix steps in to de-escalate, reminding the king that the McLain house is simply doing its duty as the guardian of the southwestern border. The king is clearly furious at being corrected, but he forces himself to retreat, admitting he might have overstepped his bounds. Relief washes over Felix, who then makes the bold suggestion that the king should perhaps cut back on his heavy drinking for the sake of his health. Logan is caught off guard by the revelation that the king is struggling with alcohol. Clutching his head in a fit of pique, the king snaps at Felix, telling the royal advisor that he will manage his own affairs. After Felix offers a hushed apology, the king lets out a hollow, nervous laugh. He claims he was simply being too sensitive, asking who else he could trust if not the duke who placed him on the throne. But despite the king's words, Logan knows the truth. The king is still hunting him. He realizes that if this shadow game continues, they are heading toward a total, violent conflict. Seeking a way to clear his name, Logan later calls upon Damien. He asks the young man for any strategy that might help them capture the true assassin. Damien is stunned, questioning why an administrator chosen for his poetry skills is being asked to solve a high-stakes investigation. Logan acknowledges his talents but explains the gravity of the situation. The Esperanza Knights, the Royal Inspectorate, and even the Master of the Magic Tower have all failed. Damien is his only hope, specifically the version of Damien from Logan's past life, the legendary strategist of the Independence Army known as the Evil Brain. Logan encourages him to speak freely, and Damien begins to analyze the facts. He notes that while assassinations are usually desperate measures, this case feels fundamentally different. Logan agrees, pointing out that while the attackers were numerous, they were treated far too easily. Yet the cleanup after the battle was suspiciously perfect. Damien suggests that the goal was never to kill the king. When Logan asks for the motive, Damien explains that in a crime with no apparent gain, the culprit is usually the person who stands to benefit most, or the person who would suffer the most from the fallout. The weight of the realization hits Logan like a hammer. He is the intended victim. Damien confirms the logic. Framing a powerful vassal for an assassination attempt is the perfect way to force a conflict between Logan and the king. When Logan asks where the killer would hide, Damien's answer is brilliant in its simplicity. He wouldn't run. He argues that since the killer is unrecognizable without his mask and invisible to magical tracking, he would simply wait out the search within the capital's borders. Damien reasons that while the darkest place is under the lamp, a man missing a right arm cannot hide in high society areas. He points Logan toward the lawless slums outside the outer walls, a place where a missing limb or a scarred body is so common that it wouldn't draw a single glance. Logan wastes no time and moves toward the filth-ridden outskirts. Reading the intelligence reports, he notes that only 7 men in the entire slum fit the description of having a severed right arm. He organizes a sweep of the area alongside the Esperanza Knight. As he prowls through the dark, blind alleys, Logan tells himself that if the killer isn't here, he must have escaped long ago. He eventually spots 3 men huddled on the ground, their hands outstretched for spare change. Logan activates his special technique, his eyes glowing with a sharp yellow light that pierces through their disguises. He finds them, 3 hidden force users. He feels their hidden power and walks straight toward them. While one man seems to recognize him, another plays the part of a beggar whining for a single coin. Logan plays along, tossing 3 gold coins toward them with a look of feigned disgust. But the coins are weapons. Infused with lethal mana, they fly with the force of bullet. 2 of the men are struck in the stomach, but the leader reacts with predatory speed, dodging the projectile at the last second and taking flight into the shadows. The assassin leaps through the air, his heart pounding as he realizes he was just stared down by Logan McLain himself. But Logan is a ghost at his heels. He catches up in an instant, calling the attackers rats before delivering a devastating blow to the man's shoulder. The assassin crashes to the ground, his blood staining the dirt of the alley. Logan stands over him, his sword shimmering with mana, and demands to know if he is the one-armed killer. The man looks up at Logan and begins to laugh with a terrifying manic intensity. As his body begins to dissolve into a dark mist, he mocks the idea of being called a mere assassin. He vanishes into nothingness, leaving Logan standing alone in the dark. But the victory is short-lived. Logan's hand begins to shake violently, and his sword clatters against the stones. He covers his face, gasping for breath through his fingers, as he realizes with horror that the air itself was a trap. He has been poisoned. He disappears into nothing, leaving Logan standing alone in the darkness. But the victory does not last long. Logan's hand starts shaking badly, and his sword falls to the ground with a sharp clatter against the stones. He covers his face, struggling to breathe through his fingers, and suddenly realizes in horror that the air itself was a trap. He has been poisoned. To escape the deadly, swirling cloud of toxic gas, Logan pushes himself high into the air with a desperate leap that seems to defy gravity. However, even while he is still in the air, he understands the harsh truth. The poison has already started to affect him. Its burning effects can be seen clearly in the pain and strain on his face. At that dangerous moment, a frightening realization hits him. The last time he felt something this suffocating and final was at the very end of his previous life. Refusing to let the same fate happen again, he lands firmly on a nearby rooftop and immediately begins to move his inner power. A bright, blinding light bursts out from his body, spreading outward with such force that it starts to burn away the poisonous mist. The air hisses and crackles as the light cleans everything, destroying every trace of the toxin until nothing remains. With a heavy and uneven breath, Logan stands upright, realizing that he managed to force the poison out of his body through pure strength. Looking down from where he stands, he notices that there is no sign left of his attackers. The assassins have completely disappeared, leaving behind no evidence at all, only empty space. He mutters to himself that this whole situation is enough to make anyone lose their mind. Soon after, the scene shifts to the Grand Royal Hall, where Logan stands before the king and explains the terrifying events of the attack. The king listens carefully, his forehead wrinkled as he asks for more details. He questions whether it is really possible that all of those trained assassins killed themselves at the same time. Logan confirms the harsh truth, explaining that everything happened in a single moment, leaving them no chance to discover who they were or who was controlling them from the shadows. Lowering his head respectfully, Logan asks for the king's forgiveness for not being able to gather more information. The king says that this result is exactly what he expected. Hearing this, a cold feeling runs down Logan's spine, and he begins to shake slightly. He is sure that the king's earlier doubts about him have now turned into full suspicion. But the king's next words completely surprise him. He tells Duke Logan to lift his head and says that failing to catch the attackers is not his fault. He explains that the complete disappearance of the assassins only proves how carefully and dangerously the enemy had planned everything. With an unexpectedly warm smile, the king tells Logan that he has worked very hard and deserves praise. Logan is briefly stunned by this sudden kindness and thanks him hesitantly, while even Master Felix watches in complete shock at the king's change in attitude. The king stands up from his throne, his voice becoming softer as he admits that he may have been too harsh during their last meeting after the major incident. He walks down toward Logan and asks him to forgive him for being an imperfect and overly reactive ruler. Placing a firm and almost fatherly hand on Logan's shoulder, the king looks into his eyes and gently asks who else he could depend on in such dark times if not Logan. Master Felix feels great joy, his heart filled with pride and relief that his ruler finally seems to trust his most talented student. However, Logan still cannot get rid of a strange feeling of discomfort. Even as he looks at the king's smiling face, he briefly notices a faint and dark aura coming from him. For a moment, he wonders if something is wrong, but he chooses not to think too deeply about it and decides to go along with the situation. With a polite smile, he thanks the king for his steady trust. The tension in the room fades away as the three of them share a laugh, acting as if the assassination attempt and their earlier conflict were just distant memories. The story then moves to the king's private chamber, lit by soft candlelight, where the mood is completely different. The royal butler carefully pours deep red wine into the king's silver cup and quietly asks if the meeting with Count Logan went well. The king's kind expression disappears instantly, replaced by pure hatred. He slams his glass onto the table with his fist, his face twisting into an ugly expression as he declares that the meeting was far from pleasant. He burns with anger, explaining that the kindness he showed earlier was only an act, a desperate attempt to hide the mistake of showing his true hostile feelings in public. He believes that Logan, a man who has spent his life chasing one big goal, must have seen through the act completely. To the king, that display of trust was not an apology, but a humiliating and bitter sign of submission that he was forced to show. With his voice shaking from anger and resentment, the king complains about his position. He wonders out loud if his two older brothers would have ever faced such humiliation if they had become king instead. He bitterly concludes that this shame is his burden to carry because he was only the third prince, a weak and ignored figure who was bullied by his siblings and left forgotten in the shadows while others received honor and glory. Seeing the king falling deeper into this pit of self-hatred, the butler steps closer and pours more wine to calm him. He tells the king to listen carefully as he drinks because he has an idea to share. There is clear evil intent in the butler's eyes. It is obvious that he is a skilled manipulator, slowly building a plan to use the king's weaknesses and turn him completely against Logan. And so far, every part of his dark plan is working perfectly. Exactly 1 week later, the focus shifts to the busy capital city of Grandia. Damien steps down from a dusty carriage, stretching his legs as he looks around at the tall towers and crowded streets, noting that they have finally arrived. As the carriage moves through the streets, the local people begin to point and whisper in surprise when they recognize the symbol of the McLain family carriage. Damien is deep in thought, trying to understand why the young master would call someone of low rank like him all the way to the center of the kingdom. A feeling of worry hangs over him as he considers that this might be connected to the recent assassination attempt. He thinks to himself that he has no desire to be involved in the dangerous and complicated games of the nobles. Eventually, Damien arrives at a quiet house near the edge of the palace grounds. He sees a young boy carefully sweeping the entrance with a broom and walks up to him, politely asking if this is the annex of the McLain family. The boy stops and looks up, immediately recognizing Damien as the guest they were expecting. He confirms Damien's identity but gives the surprising news that the Count is not there at the moment. Confused, Damien asks where Logan could have gone so suddenly. The boy explains that an extremely important guest arrived at the palace today, and the young master was urgently called by the king. Damien stands there in shock, wondering who could be so powerful in the current situation of the kingdom that Logan had to be summoned immediately. The scene then moves to the royal court, where the identity of the mysterious guest is revealed. It is a man with long, striking hair and a strong presence. He is the special envoy of the Ares Empire, Count Christian Moloch. As he walks through the hall, the nobles around him begin whispering nervously, talking about his unusually pale skin, a famous physical trait that proves the bloodline of the Imperial family. The envoy stops in front of the King of Grandia and performs a perfect bow, offering formal greetings from the Ares Empire. When the king asks why an Imperial envoy has come from so far away, Christian explains that although he may be a little late, he has come to officially congratulate the king on his coronation and deliver valuable gifts sent directly by the emperor. Watching from a distance, Logan leans toward Master Felix and quietly asks if it is normal for Imperial envoys to appear without any notice. Felix shakes his head and says that it is very unusual, though he mentions that the king seemed to know about the visit beforehand. This only confuses Logan more. He asks why they were informed so late, especially since the entire schedule for the day had to be changed. Felix suggests that the king may have simply forgotten because of the recent chaos. Logan does not believe that at all, thinking that a visit from the Empire is far too important for a ruler to forget. He feels that there is a deeper and more careful plan behind this timing. The king expresses his gratitude to Count Christian for the expensive gifts, which are then announced to the court. They include a rare and powerful elixir, a highly advanced 5th-class artifact that improves health, and a collection of jewels from mines that no longer exist. These treasures are beyond value, and the king says he feels a strong need to repay such generosity. However, Count Christian raises his hand and says that the emperor does not want any material return or gift. He slowly turns his eyes toward Logan and points directly at him in the crowd. He declares that there is only one thing the Empire wants. The young hero who solved the kingdom's recent crisis, Count Logan McLain, has been personally invited to the Imperial Palace. The announcement shocks everyone in the room. Logan and Master Felix are both left completely stunned. As all eyes turn toward him, Logan can only stare back in disbelief, his mind racing as he tries to understand why the emperor of the most powerful nation in the world would suddenly call for him. The emperor of the Ares Empire, Caesar von Ares. To Logan, that name carries the weight of countless tragedies. He is the conqueror who started the Imperial Wars and destroyed entire nations, the main target of the Grand Liberation Front in Logan's past life. Even though he played such a huge role in history, Logan never saw his face until the moment he died. But now, the past is changing. Christian breaks the silence with an announcement that chills the entire room. Emperor Caesar has officially invited Count Logan McLain to the Imperial capital. Logan freezes, the shock clear in his eyes. He cannot understand why a man with such absolute power would suddenly take interest in a count from a small territory. The question keeps troubling him. Why has he been called to the heart of the empire? The two men stare at each other in silence for several long and tense seconds. At last, the king speaks. Looking at Logan, he suggests that accepting the invitation might be the best choice. Logan turns to him in surprise and sees a calm, almost knowing smile on the king's face. The king explains that this visit could strengthen the relationship between their nations. Logan feels uneasy. Suspicion rises in his heart as he wonders if the king arranged this without telling him. But when he notices Christian's confident smile, he understands the truth. The empire is not following the king's wishes. It is more likely the opposite. After thinking for a moment, Logan gives his answer. He agrees to go, but with one condition. Since he will be meeting the emperor, he needs enough time to prepare his affairs. Christian immediately reassures him, saying the emperor has already allowed plenty of time. He adds that a grand spring festival will soon take place in the imperial capital, Assyrian, and suggests that Logan arrive by then. Logan quickly thinks through the situation. Winter is coming fast, and the journey to the capital alone will take 3 difficult months. He clenches his fist, feeling the pressure of time, but he knows he has no choice. He looks at Christian and firmly says he understands and will prepare. Satisfied, the king orders his attendants to begin the celebration and calls for a grand welcome party for Count Christian. As Logan quietly leaves, his master Felix catches up to him. Felix is confused and asks if Logan is really leaving immediately without staying for the party. Logan confirms that he is leaving at once because urgent matters are waiting for him at home. Felix sighs, saying his student is always busy, and wonders what could possibly keep him so occupied. Logan's expression becomes serious as he pulls Felix aside and makes an important request. While he is away, Felix must keep a close watch on the king. Felix is shocked and asks if Logan has not already made peace with the king. Logan explains that this is exactly why he is worried. Being close creates chances for manipulation. Felix nods, agreeing that they cannot risk another misunderstanding, but he points out that the Imperial envoy seemed friendly. He asks if Logan still believes the Empire plans to start a war. Logan answers immediately and with complete certainty, yes. When Felix asks why, Logan tells him to look carefully at the gifts the Empire sent. Felix is confused and asks what could be wrong with such valuable items. Logan explains that the elixirs, health support artifacts, and rare gems are prestigious but cannot be sold or used to strengthen the economy. None of them increase real national power. Felix is surprised by such a harsh view, but Logan stands firm. He says he does not want to doubt them, and if peace truly continues, nothing would make him happier. But if war begins, their current carelessness will cost them dearly. Moved by Logan's thinking, Felix promises to stay alert. Before Logan leaves, Felix says he will assign someone to escort him to the Empire. When Logan asks who it is, Felix only smiles and keeps it a secret. Later, Logan wonders who it could be. Before parting, Felix tells him to visit more often, saying Stella has been asking about him. Logan promises to return once his work is done, says goodbye, and leaves. Felix watches him go, noticing that Logan does not even look back, and quietly wishes him a safe journey. A few days later, Logan returns to McLain Town. Dwayne greets him while struggling with a huge pile of paperwork. As he drops the reports on the table, he asks why Logan is in such a rush. Logan says time is short. He will leave again soon and will be gone for half a year. Dwayne is shocked, but Logan interrupts him and demands a full report first. Dwayne starts by talking about young Master Ranian. He says Ranian is in the Southern Empire, working as a mercenary under the name Ron. Logan realizes that means his brother is likely fighting monsters on the front lines. Dwayne confirms this and adds that their mother fainted when she heard the news. Logan sighs and decides to prepare medicine to calm her before she becomes angry at him. Dwayne then moves on to a report from Philip. Later, Logan stands at the training ground, watching soldiers train. He asks Kai if these are the same men chosen 4 years ago, the ones who first took the sensory test. Kai confirms it. Logan observes them using his power and is impressed. Many of them now possess force, and soon many will reach the level of Knight-class fighters. Kai adds that 5 of them have already awakened their powers. Logan is excited and can hardly believe such progress was possible in just 4 years. He asks who they are, and Kai points them out, saying they were the most talented from the beginning. Kai praises the method, but Logan's expression becomes serious. He explains that this method belongs to the Empire. The Ares Empire is already using these sensory tests across its lands to find talent. Logan realizes that his territory alone cannot compete. They need more talent, and if necessary, they must expand this system across the whole kingdom. At that moment, a carrier pigeon lands on Logan's arm. Kai asks if it is his pet, but Logan ignores him and removes a message from the Information Guild. The letter contains results from an identity check he requested 4 years ago about several individuals. The guild has finally confirmed the identities of 3 of them. Logan looks at the names and realizes they are powerful individuals he has been searching for. In his past life, they became incredibly strong but never served any nation. One of them, Victor the Noble Slayer, later worked under Logan, while another, Crown the Massacre Mage, died tragically. Logan knows that if he does nothing, these people will be recruited by the Empire as mercenaries and used against his kingdom in 5 years. As he folds the letter, his expression turns cold. There are only 2 options. He must recruit them or he must kill them. Later, Logan drinks tea with his father, the Marquis. The atmosphere is tense as the Marquis repeats Logan's plan: find talented individuals, offer them a place, and kill them if they refuse. He asks how Logan can justify such an order. Logan calmly explains that he would normally handle it himself, but he has been called to the Empire. His father sighs, saying he has received many strange requests from Logan, but this is the most extreme. When he asks for a reason, Logan says that in the future, these individuals will join the Empire. His father doubts that possibility is enough to justify killing them. But Logan insists, saying every name on the list will become extremely powerful. The Marquis is shaken and asks how Logan can know this. Logan admits he has no proof but says that if they are not stopped now, they will become a major threat, especially one called Banjoan. The Marquis is left speechless and comments that Logan has no talent for diplomacy. Still, he admits that Logan has always delivered results. Logan stays humble, saying those results came from people trusting him. He thinks about his allies. Hamar building the city, Clayton and Victoria working on magic, Eileen training with Victor, and the efforts of Dwayne, Kai, Damien, and Claude. He also thinks of his family, the people he wants to protect. Snow begins to fall, marking the arrival of winter. Logan looks over the city and notes he has not had any rest. He calls Rick and asks if everything is ready for the long journey. Meanwhile, in the snowy forest near the estate, a young boy walks alone when a noise in the bushes stops him. A huge, angry bear suddenly attacks. The boy freezes in fear and closes his eyes. Just before the bear can strike, a massive man appears and knocks it out with one punch. The boy opens his eyes, shaking. The man mutters that it was a close call. When the boy looks at him, the man's size and presence make him seem like a monster. The man asks if he is okay, and says he only wanted directions, but the boy screams and faints from fear. The man removes his hood, revealing himself as Luther. He complains that he only wanted to find the way to McLain. When Luther arrives at the estate, Logan is waiting. He laughs, saying he never expected Felix to send Duke Luther as his escort. Logan notices the unconscious boy and asks what happened. Luther explains that the boy fainted just from seeing him. He hands the boy to a guard and says a less intimidating envoy would have been better. He adds that Wiccan, whom Logan defeated before, seemed ready to attack Logan, so he took the job instead. Logan smiles, understanding why Wiccan feels that way. He asks Luther if he holds any grudge. Luther admits it is difficult not to, but says it no longer matters. He only asks for a place to sleep, even if it is a stable. Logan refuses, saying he would never treat someone of such power with disrespect, and tells him to ask for anything he needs. Luther is about to refuse, but his stomach suddenly growls loudly, making the nearby guards laugh. Embarrassed and blushing, he ends up accepting Logan's offer of a hot meal. After eating, Luther walks along the McLain walls, annoyed with himself for the awkward moment. Soon, his attention shifts to the training grounds, where he sees Logan sparring with Victor Mid. He watches with interest, wondering how Logan can stay so calm before meeting the Emperor. He remembers a moment from the past when Felix asked him, not ordered him, to help the boy. Felix wanted him to observe Logan and, if he saw talent, to teach him like a true veteran. Luther quietly wonders if he even deserves to be called a veteran anymore. His thoughts stop when Logan, who has already defeated Victor, calls out to him. Logan asks if he liked the food, and Luther admits it was excellent. Then Logan, with a sharp look, suggests they have a duel as some exercise after the meal. The two stand in an empty, windy clearing, both holding their weapons and ready to fight. Logan grips his sword tightly, while Luther stands like a giant with his huge hammer, which looks strong enough to crush rocks. Looking around, Logan says this place is perfect since they can fight freely without worrying about destroying anything. As he checks his sword, he thinks about his past fights against powerful beings. Those battles helped him understand aura, but it has been a long time since he truly tested it. With a fierce smile, he realizes this fight is exactly what he needs. Luther, clearly excited, lifts his hammer and points it at Logan's chest. With confidence, he warns that he will not hold back, even if this is just a friendly match. Logan lowers his stance and replies that this is exactly what he wants. Without another word, Logan releases his power. A bright golden aura surrounds him, and he rushes forward at incredible speed. Luther is surprised by how fast Logan moves, thinking his movements are just like those of the legendary Sword Saint. As Logan gets close in an instant, Luther swings his hammer in a wide arc, the weapon glowing with a deep red aura. Logan ducks under the attack, the wind from the hammer passing over his head, and quickly strikes back with a fast thrust. His sword, shining with golden energy, aims straight at Luther's face. A huge explosion shakes the area, sending a powerful shockwave through the trees. Victor, watching from a distance, is shocked by the level of power. As the dust slowly settles, Logan calls out, asking if covering the whole body with aura is basically cheating. Luther had protected himself by covering his body in red aura-like armor. With a small smile, Luther tells him that if he thinks it is unfair, he should try it himself. But inside, Luther feels nervous. He knows that one mistake could make him look foolish. He admits to himself that Logan avoided a deadly attack and countered perfectly, showing skill worthy of a direct student of the Sword Saint. Still, Luther tightens his grip on his hammer and reminds himself that as a veteran, he knows how to deal with talented fighters. Luther tells Logan that he has spent his whole life fighting someone extremely fast. Then he suddenly moves forward with explosive speed, his body covered in red aura. He says he will keep attacking until Logan is completely worn out. Logan sees the hammer coming close to his head and quickly dodges, jumping into the air to avoid the shockwave as the hammer hits the ground and cracks the earth. While in the air, Logan thinks that even a transcendent would struggle to avoid such powerful attack. He strikes the air with his power to gain speed and dives down like a falling star, aiming his glowing sword at Luther's head. Luther looks up and laughs loudly. He easily blocks the attack and prepares to swing again. The moment Logan lands, he sees the hammer just a few inches from his face. He freezes, shocked by how fast Luther changed his movement. Logan asks if Luther is changing the speed of his attacks on purpose to confuse him. Luther nods and explains that it is a special technique used by slower fighters to match faster ones. When the opponent thinks they understand the speed, he suddenly moves twice as fast to surprise them. Logan thinks this sounds much easier than it actually is, since controlling speed like that requires great skill. Still, he finds it very interesting. Luther says he is not sure Logan will enjoy this much longer, but Logan insists he is having a great time. He gathers his power again, and his sword shines with a stronger golden light. Luther is surprised by the rising energy as Logan says he also has a hidden move. As the sword grows brighter, Luther realizes how powerful the attack will be. At that moment, Luther remembers Felix's words again, telling him to guide the boy if he saw potential. He recalls how he once thought it was a joke, asking him to teach someone like Logan. Logan was a hero who saved the kingdom, while Luther saw himself as a traitor who had only survived quietly. He had wondered who was supposed to teach whom. But now, seeing Logan's power, he realizes he was completely wrong. Watching the glowing sword, he wonders if Logan can actually see the flow of aura. He understands that Felix knew from the beginning that Logan would reach this level. Logan, now fully powered, calls him Duke Luther and says he is ready to learn properly. Then he charges forward for one last clash. Some time later, the fight ends with both of them breathing heavily. Luther stands over a kneeling Logan and bluntly calls his performance pathetic. Even so, he admits that he first thought Logan had fully awakened his aura. But after seeing him fight, he realizes it is only a partial aura. He says that if Logan had fully awakened it at his age, it would have been less surprising. Confused, Logan asks if he did something wrong. Luther asks if he is serious and explains that Logan is forcing aura while still having the body of a Force user. Logan says it feels natural since he is still learning, but Luther firmly corrects him. He explains that aura cannot be learned just by study or practice. It appears naturally only when a Force user goes beyond the limits of the human body. It is a biological change, not something that can be copied by will. Logan is shocked and starts thinking deeply. He realizes he misunderstood aura, believing it was just a higher-level skill. He thought that mastering Force perfectly was enough to reach the next stage. He assumed that learning the divine sword technique would make the change easy. Then a sudden thought scares him. He wonders about the people he has already taught and what danger this might cause them. Seeing Logan lost in thought, Luther tells him that one day he might be the first person to explain how aura truly works. He says that would be more impressive than becoming a transcendent at a young age. Luther places a heavy hand on Logan's shoulder and gives serious advice. From now on, Logan must hide this power until he becomes a true natural aura user, especially inside the Empire where many people are watching. If others find out, he could become a target. Logan thanks him for caring, and Luther awkwardly says it is the least he can do for a comrade. Just then, Victor arrives with water and a towel. He thanks Logan for the amazing fight and excitedly congratulates him on awakening his aura. Logan and Luther exchange a quiet look and small smile. Logan pats Victor on the shoulder and says he is imagining things and should not believe everything he sees in battle. As they walk back to camp, Victor stands there confused. Logan calls back, telling him to get some rest since they will leave for the heart of the Empire early in the morning. Patrick stands in front of his son, his face full of worry. As the preparations for the journey are nearly complete, he can no longer hide his concern. He asks Logan if he is really going through with this plan and whether such a small group is enough. Logan calmly replies that 18 knights are more than enough, especially with Sir Luther. But Patrick is not only worried about strength. He fears how this will look to others. Logan is going to meet the Emperor without servants or even a proper carriage. To him, it looks like they are poor, and he worries people will think the McLain family is a disgrace. Logan does not even blink. He calmly tells his father that such things will not change anything. He explains that no matter how they present themselves, the Empire will still look down on their kingdom. His father is shocked, caught off guard by his son's cold and realistic thinking. Logan's view is not without reason. He remembers the people of the Empire from his past life, when he served with the Liberation Force. They had a pride as high as the Empire's own status. In a clear memory, a younger Logan stands among a group of men at the border. One tired and desperate man asks a guard when they will be allowed to enter, saying they have been waiting since dawn. The guard does not even look at him. Instead, he mocks the man, asking if he really thought entering the Empire would be so easy, and orders them to keep waiting. As the memory fades, Logan thinks about that time. People in the Empire believed everything outside their borders was inferior. Even Count Christian had that same arrogance. In the Empire, not even a count would kneel before a foreign king. Because of this, Logan believes that fancy carriages and expensive clothes are pointless. As outsiders, he is sure the Empire's attitude will never change. At least, that is what he believed. The moment they reach the border, reality proves him wrong. Instead of cold treatment and mockery, they receive a welcome so warm that it feels strange. A guard greets them with real excitement and loudly welcomes them to the Ares Empire. Logan is completely surprised. He cannot understand why they are being treated so well. It is now the second week of their journey, and they have arrived at Luspelheim, the Great Eastern Gateway. Logan tries to explain it to himself. Maybe they would not treat official envoys badly. But this feels like something more. The kindness continues to grow. A soldier quickly brings Logan a chair and asks him to sit and rest. He even offers him a refreshing drink. As Logan drinks, his mind races. He realizes the soldier's behavior changed the moment they saw something. He is thinking about the Emperor's invitation. He remembers when Count Christian gave it to him. The Count had said the document was treated with special magic and would be very useful in the Empire. At that time, Logan thought it was just a simple pass to avoid delays at border check. But now, as he watches the guards hurry to please him, he understands that this paper is much more powerful than a travel permit. After a short wait, a high-ranking official arrives and apologizes for making them wait. This is Dmitri, the mayor of Luspelheim. Logan is stunned. Even the mayor has come personally to greet them. As they move through the city, the Empire's wealth is everywhere. The streets are full of noise and activity. Merchants shout from all sides, selling rare fruits from the far west and valuable horns and hides from Calcutta magic beasts. A blacksmith calls out to passing knights, inviting them to look at his finely made weapons. Luther and Victor are completely amazed. Luther says that even 10 years ago the city was nowhere near this grand. The mayor smiles proudly and explains that Luspelheim is the largest city in the eastern part of the empire. He even says it may be the largest city in the entire eastern half of the continent. A merchant approaches Victor, trying to sell him a ribbon as a gift for a loved one. Dmitri continues explaining, saying the resident population is 500,000 and the floating population reaches Before he can finish, Logan interrupts and completes the sentence, saying the floating population easily exceeds 1 million. The mayor is impressed and says it is an honor that Logan knows so much. Logan simply replies that Lustspelheim is a necessary stop for anyone traveling from Grandia to the Imperial capital. Dimitri watches Logan closely. Unlike the others, Logan is not overwhelmed. He is observing everything carefully, with a sharp and calculating. The mayor then mentions that a McLain caravan recently came to the city and praises how quickly they set up a branch. He even says he personally helped them. This makes Logan suspicious. Why would a mayor help a simple merchant caravan? Dimitri says they pay close attention to anything related to Grandia, but Logan does not believe him. He remembers that Dimitri was already mayor during the Great Imperial War in his past life. He begins to wonder if the man has been planning things for a long time. Looking around, Logan notices that the city's security forces are not much different from his previous life. He decides that this place needs deeper investigation. They soon arrive at a very luxurious official residence. Victor looks at it in disbelief, and says he has never seen such a tall building outside of a magic tower. The mayor offers them a special suite for important guests and invites them to rest as long as they wish. Logan thanks him and says he will remember his kindness. This makes the mayor laugh loudly. Confused, Logan asks if there is something he can do in return. Suddenly, the mayor's attitude changes completely. He drops his polite act, and his face becomes serious. He tells Logan that when he rises to the Empire's High Council, he hopes Logan will remember his name. Logan, Luther, and Victor are shocked. The soldiers whisper among themselves, wondering what the mayor thinks their young master will become. Logan asks if the mayor really believes he will join the Empire's high rank. The mayor answers without hesitation. He points out that Logan has a personal invitation from the Emperor. Logan tries to brush it off, saying it must be a misunderstanding and that he is only an envoy. But the mayor laughs nervously and says Logan is the one who is mistaken. He explains that this is not a normal diplomatic letter. It is a personal invitation addressed directly to Logan McLain. Those who receive such invitations usually end up staying by the Emperor's side. The Emperor values talent above all else, and the mayor is sure he will give Logan a position worthy of his abilities. Logan feels a heavy weight in his chest as he understands the situation. He argues that even if his family seems small compared to the Empire, his roots are strong. The mayor stays silent for a moment, then tells Logan to remember his words as a warning. Luther cannot stay quiet anymore. He bursts out in anger, saying the more he hears, the more it sounds like an insult to their kingdom. Logan tries to calm him, but Luther is too angry. He says they are basically asking a foreign envoy to abandon his country and become one of them. Logan quietly tells him that the people of the Empire do not see it as an insult. They truly believe they are offering him the greatest opportunity. The mayor watches awkwardly, unsure if he has gone too far. Luther calls it what it is, Imperial superiority. Logan agrees, but his thoughts are elsewhere. He wonders if the Emperor is really trying to recruit him. He thinks about the ruler, a man who gathers talented people regardless of age or gender. A conqueror who took control of a powerful eastern nation as soon as he became emperor and expanded his territory by a third. Logan starts to sweat. He wonders if it is even possible to refuse such a man and survive. For a moment, he even considers turning back and fleeing home. But it is already too late. Suddenly, a huge and overwhelming presence fills the area. A voice announces that His Majesty's guest has arrived. Logan and Luther freeze under the pressure of the man's power. The mayor confirms that their escort has come. A tall and imposing figure walks toward them. Luther quietly warns Logan that this is no ordinary soldier. He is a transcendent. The warrior stops in front of them and asks if he is speaking to Count Logan McLain. When Logan confirms, the man gives a slight bow and says it is an honor to meet him. He introduces himself as Blake of the Violent Charge and declares that from this moment on, he will personally escort Logan safely to the heart of the Imperial capital.